Poem of the Week number 20, Along the Quay by Sully Prudhomme, 1839 to 1907, first published on the 25th of December 2021. The following post is not really new, it's rather a translation of the one that preceded it in French. If you wish to read the French original, I will link it in the description. Along the Quay. Along the quay, the ships that dock and billow to the silent tide pay no heed to the bleary-eyed babes their anxious mothers rock. And yet the day to bid farewell must come. Mothers are made to cry, and darling children meant to try the charms that on horizons dwell. And on that day, when they leave the shore and fly the slowly waning port, they'll feel their heavy keels fraught with all the souls those cradles bore. Notwithstanding its status as the most prestigious literary prize in the world, most of the winners of the Nobel Prize in Literature are or will be unknown to the modern reader. And if you don't believe me, look at the list of winners and tell me how many of them you have read. In general, this fact is perfectly understandable, for the great majority of writers do not leave works of permanent quality. Nevertheless, there are certain winners who have been unjustly forgotten for a reason much harder to determine. Alas, poor Sully Prudhomme, the first laureate of the prize in literature. His election was very poorly received at the time, at least outside of France. In Sweden, August Strindberg went as far as commenting that Prudhomme was hardly even a poet. Is that not too harsh? One can argue in favour of Tolstoy, Ibsen or Hardy, and say that they were better candidates or artists, but to claim that Prudhomme was a bad poet? Never. I will give these critics of Prudhomme the benefit of the doubt by supposing that they were influenced by the perceived injustice of the decision of the Swedish Academy. Today I hope that these emotions have calmed down and that we can honestly re-evaluate his work, for he was a poet of elegance and sensibility, and even if his poems do not adhere to the style of the modern era, one can find in them a quality of permanence and a freshness that lasts well into our days. Form. In translation, 3 quatrains in rhymed iambic tetrameter. Analysis. The poem is set in a port town. The poet observes ships docked along the quay. Their movement in the undulation of the sea is paralleled by the hands of women dandling their infants in their cradles. Quote, Along the quay the ships that dock and bellow to the silent tide pay no heed to the bleary-eyed babes their anxious mothers rock. The poet foresees the day when these children will leave the nest. Being a port town, many of them are destined to a life at sea, and I quote, And yet the day to bid farewell must come. Mothers are made to cry, and darling children meant to try the charms that on horizons dwell. And only on that day will those ships finally know what has become of those children. And I quote, On that day, when they leave shore and fly the slowly waning port, they'll feel their heavy keels fraught with all the souls those cradles bore.